Relatives and friends are currently congratulating me as my daughter, Song Jeja, has been admitted to a prestigious high school. Today, I am hosting a celebration banquet in her honor. Amidst the laughter and dining, everyone praises Jeja and occasionally compliments me on raising her well. Wearing a new princess dress I bought for her, Jeja frowns slightly and gives me a disdainful look. She mutters under her breath, relying on me to save face because you can't do it yourself. If I stop studying, let's see what you'll have left to boast about. Just wait, next time I'll deliberately score at the bottom and see how dad deals with you. Her words send a moment of disorientation through me. Seeing Jeja's smug expression triggers a flashback of my past life where I was tragically killed in a car accident. A tidal wave of hatred surges from within me. My sister-in-law, noticing my distracted state, chimes in, "Sister-in-law, high school is a crucial phase. You must not slack in managing Jeja. Our Song family has handed you a potential Tsinghua or Peking University student, and you must accompany her in her studies for these 3 years." Before I can respond, Jeja retorts with dissatisfaction to her aunt, "Mind your own business. I don't want her with me, I'm staying in the dorm. Who'd want to be with her every day?" Her aunt gives her a meaningful look and rebukes, "How can you not appreciate what's good for you? High school is tough. And no school meals can compare to your mother's cooking, not to mention the dorms being less comfortable than home." Regaining my composure, I watch the aunt and niece interact, a cold smile forming inside. "She's not my mom, she's just someone who broke up someone else's marriage. My mom is Xia Yan, not her," Jeja retorts, straightening her neck to correct her aunt. The banquet hall turns their eyes towards us, filled with curiosity, sympathy, and mockery. Yet no one dares to criticize Jeja, the freshly crowned junior high school champion. My sister-in-law's gaze is intriguing, mixed with glee and mockery, as if waiting for a show to begin. Knowing she and Xia Yan are close friends, I force a smile and feign helplessness. "You're 16 years old and still so naive. When I married your father, your biological mom was already busy chasing other kids around." My sister-in-law's mouth twitches. "Now that you're grown up, I must respect your wishes. Don't worry, I definitely won't accompany you to school. We can make a vow right here." "All right." I try to look affectionate, thinking she has manipulated me. Jeja looks triumphant. "That's more like it, but you better keep your word." "Absolutely, we have plenty of relatives and friends here to witness," I reply, simplifying the conversation. The people around us recognize my weak position within the Song family. Hearing my agreement to not accompany Jeja, my sister-in-law grows anxious. "Sister-in-law, Jeja is just a child and doesn't know any better. Are you also being foolish by indulging her whims?" I cut her off. "Today is Jeja's academic achievement celebration. Let her decide everything. Come on, let's raise a glass to celebrate our Jeja scoring the highest in the city." Accompanying a high school student means waking up earlier than the chickens and sleeping later than the dogs. Not only would I have to take her to various tutoring classes and meticulously prepare balanced meals, but I would also have to endure Jeja's verbal abuse. In my past life, I accompanied her for 3 years and aged significantly. Although she was recommended for Peking University, I ended up with neurasthenia and chronic insomnia. Now they expect me to be her unpaid caretaker again. In their dreams, my husband, Song Yuan, was married once before. Song Jiejia is his daughter with his ex-wife, and they divorced when Jiejia was just 3 years old. At that time, his ex-wife, Xia Yan, was already secretly pregnant with another man's child. She had no interest in keeping Jiejia and specifically demanded the car worth about 400,000 yuan under Song Yuan's name. She didn't ask for the house because it belonged to Song Yuan's parents. When I married Song Yuan, Jiejia was already in the 2nd grade of elementary school. She was raised by her grandmother and often looked unkempt, with dirty clothes and her cheeks frequently smeared with mucus. Because of her appearance, she was often bullied by other children at school. After marrying into the family, I was unable to conceive for the first couple of years, so I treated Jiejia as my own daughter. Gradually, her personality became more outgoing. I enrolled her in expensive extracurricular classes, hobby groups, horse riding lessons, and summer camps. I helped her with homework after school and accompanied her during physical activities. Her academic performance improved drastically from being at the bottom of her class to being among the top 3 students in her grade by the 4th or 5th grade. I spent all the money I had saved before marriage on her, yet Song's family never inquired about the cost of any of Jiejia's classes. Her grandmother only mocked me for showing off by providing these opportunities. suggesting I was merely troubling her precious granddaughter. In the third year of our marriage, I became pregnant. Song Yuan was thrilled, and my mother-in-law was visibly happy. However, during this time, Jia accidentally knocked me down while playing with a toy car. I was holding a bowl of hot soup and fell, leading to a miscarriage in the early stages of my pregnancy and severe burns on my arm. Jia, terrified, burst into tears and apologized, insisting it was an accident and that she hadn't seen me coming out of the kitchen. She was 10 years old at the time, her face streaked with tears and filled with fright. I believed her. Since then, I have never been able to conceive again, yet, I was not overly fixated on this. As I considered Jia my own daughter, she became very attached to me, constantly staying by my side and calling me a mom. Whenever I was busy, she would rest her chin against me and look up with adoring eyes. However, my sister-in-law and mother-in-law would often bring up her biological mother, Xia Yan, especially during our happiest moments, reminiscing about how much Xia Yan loved her when she was little. Eventually, Xia Yan began taking Jia to her place under the pretext of visiting, causing Jia to grow increasingly resentful towards me. By the time she started middle school, her dislike had evolved into outright hostility. After a graduation party, on the way home, Jia, sitting in the backseat of the car, told me she wanted to stay at a friend's house for a couple of days. I wasn't surprised by her request, because the main character in her life was about to make an entrance, Feng Shui, a notorious bad boy. At that moment, she was planning to accept Feng Shui's invitation to spend a couple of days at his luxurious villa. In my past life, my persistent efforts to keep her away from such bad influences had caused her to deeply resent me. When she was in her first year of high school, her grades plummeted, and she secretly got tattoos and started smoking. After talking to her classmates, I learned that she was dating Feng Shui, a wealthy heir. Once I realized the problem, I strictly supervised her and warned Feng Shui to stay away from my daughter. I knew that someone like Feng Shui, born into wealth, would never marry someone from a broken family like mine, as wealthy families often seek equal social standings and strong alliances. I didn't want Jia to be merely a plaything for him. I also urged Jia to give up on him. She respects the boundaries and rules I have set for her safety. After all, as her guardian, it is my duty to ensure her well-being, even if it means being seen as overbearing at times. I devoted all my heart and soul to my studies. Unexpectedly, 3 months later, Feng Shui went abroad. Song Jia, however, believed that I had forced Feng Shui to leave the country. Later, her academics gradually got back on track after I hired an expensive tutor for her. However, after she secured a guaranteed spot at Peking University, I was the first person she wanted to push away. Even when I was hit by a car and close to death, I wondered what I had done wrong for her to hate me so. Now, I have my answer. Some people are just ungrateful and impossible to please. Now, Song Jia is still a minor, and as her guardian, I still need to consider her personal safety. Even though I knew from a previous life that she planned to spend the night at Feng Shui's house, I still asked, "Where are you going, and with whom?" She replied impatiently, "Do you really think you're my mom?" "I told you, it's with a friend," I persisted. "Friends can be boys or girls. Are you going to your boyfriend's house or a girlfriend's house?" Seeing my insistence, she suddenly changed her story. "Actually, I want to visit my mom for a couple of days before school starts." I lied because I was afraid you wouldn't let me go. "Then have her send me a message detailing when you will go, how long you will stay, and when you will be brought back," I said. I didn't want to face any trouble from her father and grandmother if something happened to her. As Song Jia sent the message using her phone watch, she muttered under her breath, "So annoying. Can't even have her own kids, always trying to control me." I saw her extremely annoyed expression in the rearview mirror of the car. I was so angry. I wanted to tell her that if it weren't for the legal obligation, I wouldn't stop her even if she wanted to go to the moon. When we got home, Song Yuan, who was supposed to be on a business trip out of town, was sitting on the couch watching TV. I remembered that he must have rushed back after receiving a call from his ex-wife. I had called him several times before, hoping he could make time to attend the school entrance celebration, but he had excused himself each time citing work commitments. Yet, a slight complaint from his ex-wife about him not caring for his daughter had him rushing back immediately. It's funny how the impact of a first love never truly fades. Seeing her father, Song Jia joyfully threw herself into his arms. Song Yuan, stroking her hair indulgently, said, "I'm sorry, Jia. Daddy was too busy with work and couldn't make it to your celebration. It's my fault. As compensation, what gift would you like?" Daddy will get it for you, he asked, Song Jiejia, casting a provocative glance at me, cooed to her father, I want the latest model smartphone. And I also want to continue my painting classes. Song Yuan looked at me, questioning. Unlike before, I didn't try to stop him and simply said, you are Jiejia's father, you decide. Over the years, I had only allowed Song Jiejia to use a phone watch and a tablet specifically for her studies. I hadn't given her a smartphone because I noticed she was easily addicted. When she previously had access to a smartphone, she would hardly eat, her eyes red from not letting go of the device. As for the painting classes, they were one of her many hobby courses. I had paid for her to attend for 6 years, with an annual fee of 18,000, yet, her painting skills were still terribly lacking. Considering her heavy middle school workload, I had her quit the painting class and replaced that time with more expensive private tutoring sessions. Her grades steadily improved, but she complained that I was authoritarian, saying she felt like a puppet, so now, I no longer interfere. I respect her wishes, as long as she respects the boundaries and rules I have set for her safety. Jiejia was unhappy when she saw that her father, Song Yuan, remained silent for a long time without agreeing to her demands. Dad, can you stop appeasing her all the time? It's not like she's paying for it. Why should she have a say? I scoffed. Indeed, I have no say in this. As long as your dad is willing to pay, I don't mind. How ridiculous. Does she really believe that her educational expenses are paid by Song Yuan? Her extracurricular classes alone cost over 100,000 yuan a year. Can Song Yuan afford that? If it weren't for my efforts and money, tirelessly taking her to various tutoring classes, does she think she could become the top scorer in the middle school exams? My indifferent expression seemed to hit a nerve in Song Yuan. Suddenly, he snapped at me sarcastically. What do you mean by that? Are you saying you paid for it? Even if you did, that money came from the salary I give you? Indeed, Song Yuan does give me a salary of 7,000 yuan a month. But that amount barely covers the daily expenses for the whole family, let alone leave anything for Jiejia's training fees. As Song Yuan questioned me with that look, my heart sank bit by bit. I didn't bother explaining, as it would be a waste of words. Whatever you say, from now on, you can handle all your daughter's expenses directly. Don't go through me. Also, you can keep your monthly salary of 7,000 yuan. When Jiejia heard that I no longer wanted her dad's salary, a smile spread across her face. Dad, why don't you give the salary to grandma from now on, so I don't have to deal with her every time I need some pocket money? Song Yuan grew even angrier after hearing this. Xiaqing, is this how you usually treat Jiejia? Giving her an attitude even over some pocket money? Have you been using my salary to support your own family? I looked at the furious man before me and suddenly realized I didn't even know him. Jiejia's clothes and shoes are all from high-end brands, and a single session with a renowned teacher costs over 1,000 yuan. If he cared, he would understand that 7,000 yuan doesn't even cover the minor expenses of his daughter's schooling celebration today. I was beyond disappointed. Fine, Song Yuan, from today onwards, keep your father-daughter issues away from me. I won't bother with your troubles anymore, and if you provoke me, don't blame me for losing my temper. With a smash, I hurled the glass water cup on the table fiercely to the ground. Shards scattered all around, like dancing sprites. Jiejia and Song Yuan stood there, stunned. In the 8 years of our marriage, this was the first time I had lost my temper like this. The next morning, Jiejia stood in the living room with a small suitcase. Seeing me come out of the bedroom, her mouth curled downwards in disgust, a perfect mimic of her grandmother. Where's the baseball cap I bought in Korea? Hurry up and find it for me, I'm going out. Her tone was as entitled as ever. I glanced at her disdainfully and walked straight to the kitchen. Ignoring her completely, she stamped her foot in frustration behind me. What kind of look was that just now? And did you not hear me? I asked you to find my baseball cap. I treated her as if she were shouting at the air, not sparing her another glance. What are you two arguing about so early in the morning? Can't you stop being annoying? Song Yuan emerged from the study, having not returned to the master bedroom but slept there instead after the argument the night before. Seeing her father, Jiejia rushed to him and clung to his arm, complaining, Dad, you need to control this woman. I asked her to help me find a baseball cap, and she wouldn't even look at me. He completely ignores me, Song Yuan said with a look of exasperation, sighing helplessly. Xiaqing, it's just a small thing, can't you help Jiejia find it? I smirked sarcastically. What, do I have the hat in my hand? Can't she find it herself? Song Jiejia snorted. Why should I? You eat and drink at my dad's expense. Your main duty is to take care of me. What's wrong with asking you to find something? I looked at my stepdaughter, who was about as tall as me. This is the daughter I have cherished for many years. I treated her like a princess, always reluctant to let her do any household chores, but in her eyes, I was just a freeloader in her house, and taking care of her was taken for granted. I snorted coldly, then hurry up and ask your dad to find a mother who neither eats nor drinks. I don't have time to cater to you. Song Jiejia's face turned purple with rage. She looked at Song Yuan, hoping he would stand up for her and give me a harsh lesson, but all she saw was her dad looking down at his phone, texting away, clearly not intending to help her. She stomped her foot in anger and stormed out with her suitcase. Song Jiejia was indeed leaving with her luggage, however. Song Yuan seemed unbothered, only lifting his head from his phone to glance at her retreating figure before turning around, ready to head back to his study. I wanted to remind him to pay more attention to who his daughter was hanging out with, to avoid any trouble at such a young age, but as he turned around, I saw his phone screen paused on a WeChat conversation with Xia Yan. The contact was saved as child's mother. I wisely shut my mouth. What did his daughter's situation have to do with me? If even her own parents didn't care, why should I, the stepmother, bother? During our marriage, I indeed had many obligations towards my stepdaughter. But what if Song Yuan and I were to divorce? To me, they would be just strangers. Thinking about the sacrifices I made for his family in my previous life, I felt it was truly not worth it. To support Song Jieja, I had cut back on my own expenses, even avoiding offline shopping malls for the past 2 years because I thought they were too expensive, opting instead for cheaper online deals. My sister-in-law, like a vampire, would come every 2 weeks to raid my house. She not only took my branded clothes and cosmetics, but even cleared out the meat and vegetables from my fridge. The reason I had money was partly due to the dowry my parents gave me at the wedding, and partly because I had saved money from my job to invest in short-term stocks. In Song Yuan's eyes, although we were both from rural backgrounds, his parents had jobs in the town, which he considered a step above my family. However, my parents leased nearly 1,000 acres of farmland and owned 2 hills, one planted with fruit trees and the other with ornamental plants. I never hid this from Song Yuan, but all he said was, no matter how much land they farm, aren't they still farmers? Do they have social security? In his mind, the family of his ex-wife, Xia Yan, was the best. Her parents were permanent employees in state-owned enterprises, with social status, stable income, and secure old age. Not a burden to their children, whereas my family was just a mud-stuck peasant family. Once, I wanted to cherish this marriage. I thought if I treated them well, they would reciprocate my sincerity, but reality harshly slapped me in the face. The daughter I had raised for 8 years constantly called me a homewrecker. I thought my husband, who was supposed to be devoted to me, was still entangled with his ex-wife behind my back. And my mother-in-law and sister-in-law treated me merely as a free housekeeper. Perhaps it was time to end it all. I went to Song Jiejia's various interest classes to handle the withdrawals and refunds. Then, I also contacted her tutors to tell them there was no need for further lessons. The compensation for the breach of contract was also paid by me. I've cancelled the overseas study program I had booked for my first-year high school winter vacation. In this life, now that I see their true colors, I will no longer be the fool. 3 days later, Song Jiejia returned home with a beaming smile, apparently having had a great time at Fengzhua's villa. My mother-in-law, who had been traveling in Southeast Asia with her sisters, also came back. As soon as she entered, she spilled out a suitcase full of gifts for Song Jiejia, Song Yuan, her sister-in-law, and even her dance partners from her square dancing group. The only person without a gift was me. The family gathered joyfully around, opening their presents, admiring their own and each other's, and chatting happily. I sat coldly on the sofa nearby, watching them. After a while, my mother-in-law finally remembered me. Xiaqing, go buy some groceries early and cook us a few dishes. I'm starving. I couldn't get used to the food abroad these past few days, she sighed, then added, look at you, my daughter-in-law, I've been home for so long. And you didn't even think to offer me a glass of water. My sister-in-law chimed in. Sister-in-law, I feel like eating crayfish. Why don't you buy some from the seafood store? Hurry back, we're all hungry. Crayfish now costs nearly 200 yuan per kilogram, and she really knows how to pick them. I calmly responded, if you're hungry, cook for yourself. The kitchen is right there, and I'm not the only one who can cook in this house. Song Yuan was displeased. Xiaqing, how can you speak to my mother like that? You know she's not in good health. She starts coughing from the smell of cooking oil. What's wrong with asking you to cook a meal? I shrugged indifferently and retorted sarcastically. Why don't I see you or your sister cooking if mom's health is so bad? What's this? Outsourcing filial piety. Didn't your family cook before I joined? Didn't you deal with kitchen smoke then? My mother-in-law's face turned utterly dark, angry. She pointed at my nose and scolded me fiercely. After finishing, she instructed her son, "I can't have such a daughter-in-law, get her out of here quickly." Song Yuan looked at me disappointedly, turning to his mother. He tried to calm her. "Mom, let's eat out today, we won't eat at home. Xiaoqing has been a bit tired these days, let her rest." Song Jiejia took her grandmother's arm and led her outside. "Grandma, I forgot to tell you. My mom knew you were coming back today and just called to invite you to dinner. Let's go with Dad and Aunt. After dinner, Mom will take me to my violin lesson. You should come and watch too. My teacher said I'm being prepared for a provincial performance." She then whispered in her grandmother's ear, "She's been a bit crazy these days. Stay away from her, don't provoke her." They left without a word to me. I gave a self-mocking laugh. Indeed, how could her own mother invite me to dinner? After the family left, the living room regained its quiet. I opened my laptop and drafted a divorce agreement. Looking at the agreement, simple enough to fit on just one page, a wave of sadness washed over me. Despite being married to Song Yuan for 8 years, there was little to divide. The house belonged to him before our marriage, our daughter was his, and the monthly salary of 7,000 yuan he gave me was almost entirely spent on his family, whether he had other savings. I didn't know, only 2 cars needed to be divided. Reflecting on these 8 years of marriage, aside from draining my savings of several hundred thousand, I had been nothing but a free housekeeper for his family. I've never managed to draw any beneficial lesson from this whole situation. I feel like covering my face and weeping for myself, yet, I swallow back the tears. If I've been given a second chance at life and recognized my mistakes, it's time to make amends. They should be the ones crying, not me. In the evening, Song Jiejia barged in through the door. "Why did you unilaterally cancel my violin lessons? Don't you realize how important they are to me with my upcoming performance?" I didn't even look up from my phone, replying nonchalantly, "Oh, ran out of money, so I cancelled it." Her frustration only grew with my indifferent attitude. "What right do you have to cancel my lessons? That was tuition paid by my dad," she retorted. "Oh. Then perhaps you should ask him to continue paying," I suggested lightly. Song Jiejia was momentarily speechless, but she continued to argue. "If my dad has already given you his salary, naturally, you should be the one paying for these expenses. What else are we giving you the money for? To support your rural parents." It's true that both her maternal grandparents and her father come from urban backgrounds, him being a senior executive at a big company. But who can claim their ancestors weren't farmers at some point? I wondered who instilled such biases in her. "I have no interest in arguing with you. If you're capable, go ask your dad to pay for the tuition if he's willing to," I said. A few days ago, I found out that Song Yuan had only bought her a smartphone, not enrolled her in any art classes. A smartphone can last through high school, but art classes are different. They cost nearly 20,000 a year. Not to mention the extensive materials needed. Clearly, with her intelligence, Song Jiejia should have realized this. In the following days, when she discovered I had cancelled all her extracurricular and private tutoring classes, she was truly panicked. She confronted me countless times, but I consistently gave her the cold shoulder, telling her we'd discuss it when her dad returned. "Don't you dislike me? Then show some backbone and stand by it. You can't have it both ways." Eating my food while trying to smash my pot. However, her tantrums lasted only a few days. Now, she's completely engrossed in playing mobile games. Climbing upwards in life might require all hands and feet, exerting every effort, but descending, sometimes, it's just a matter of tumbling down a few times. Song Yuan has been on a business trip. Lately, he's either on a trip or on his way to one. My mother-in-law has tried to pick fights with me at home several times, but I've managed to dismiss her with a few eye rolls. Since I'm preparing for divorce, I don't want to waste my breath on her. After my sister-in-law stole a gold bracelet that was part of my dowry from my mother, I reported it to the police. Surveillance footage revealed that it was my mother-in-law who had helped her steal it. I refused to settle the matter privately. Family disputes are hard even for a judge to settle, and living with my mother-in-law, who insisted she didn't know it was mine, complicated matters. My sister-in-law claimed she was just playing with it, not stealing. In the end, the matter was resolved with her returning the bracelet, receiving a reprimand, and writing a letter of promise. By now, I've completely fallen out with all members of the Song family. 2 days later, Song Yuan finally returned home. Judging by his physique, the business trip wasn't too hard. He had gained some weight, his body using a greasy aura. As he walked in, I handed him the divorce papers. Holding the document, He frowned tightly. Xia Qing, you've been throwing things, arguing with my mother, and even called the police. I've tolerated all this because you've raised Jejia so well, but look at what you've done now. Jejia told me that you've cancelled all her extracurricular classes and tutoring sessions. Are you really joking with her future? Is it because she isn't your biological child? I nodded earnestly, yes. That's right, it's because she isn't my own. Honesty is always the best policy. Song Yuan was stunned. He had intended to guilt-trip me, but he didn't expect me to admit it so openly. For a moment, he was speechless, his mouth opening and closing without forming any words. Extracurricular classes are open to public enrollment. I can sign her up, and so can you. Go and do it now. I won't stop you. I have all the tutor contacts you need right here. I'll send them to your phone now. Saying this, I opened my phone and pushed the contact information of several tutors to his account. I had finally seen through this man. Not only did he outsource his filial duties, but he also outsourced parenting. I reminded him one last time, sign the divorce papers soon. If you don't, it's fine. We can go through legal proceedings. It will only take up to 2 years, and I can afford to wait. As I turned and walked away, Song Yuan was still standing there, mouth agape, completely dumbfounded. In my previous life, until my death, I only thought it was Song Jejia who despised me. I never doubted Song Yuan. It was only in my final moments that I heard Song Jejia's malicious words, but never heard how Song Yuan responded. However, when I paid attention, I realized Song Jejia's behavior towards me was largely condoned by Song Yuan. Whenever Song Jejia yelled at me, Song Yuan seemed to be mediating, but he was always pushing me to give in. As expected, Song Yuan didn't sign the papers. How could he willingly give up on someone like me, who had contributed so much to the family? It didn't matter. I was ready to hire a lawyer to file for divorce. Once, twice, 3 times if necessary. This marriage must end. Before Song Jejia's school term started, the family surrounded me. They still dreamed of me accompanying Song Jejia for her studies. My sister-in-law said, "Sister-in-law, Jejia is a potential candidate for Tsinghua and Peking University. If she doesn't get in, it will surely be your fault." My mother-in-law added, "You could just rent a place nearby, cook, and do laundry. It's really not that hard. You also graduated from a top university. See if you can tutor her, and if not, we can always hire more tutors later," added Song Yuan, calmly. I pulled out a contract from my bag and shook it at them. "Sorry, I just signed a contract to rent 500 acres of farmland. I'm going to be farming now. I won't have time to look after your child." The 4 of them stared at me, dumbstruck. I wasn't lying. Just the day before, my senior and I indeed signed a contract to lease 500 acres of farmland for a 10-year period. In my past life, there was a similar situation. My senior mentioned that the government wanted to establish a model farm in cooperation with the Agricultural Science Institute. He asked if I was interested in taking on the contract. Knowing that my parents also contracted farmland, I hesitated for a long time and ultimately refused, thinking that there would be plenty of opportunities to farm, but a child's college entrance exams came only once. In reality, however, as a cross-cultural interpreter with English as my first language, I am well-versed in foreign cultures and languages, as well as contemporary Chinese culture and language. My expertise lies in translating and proofreading documents to ensure they are grammatically correct and flow smoothly. Here is the translation of the provided article. Maintaining the tense consistency with the original text. This opportunity is indeed rare, and missing it would mean it's gone forever. Subsequently, the demonstration plantation did indeed develop well. Even collaborating with several agricultural universities, agriculture is always fundamental. So, when my senior asked if I was interested in collaborating this lifetime, I immediately agreed. Perhaps it's the farmer's blood that has always flowed in my veins. Mention farming, and I get excited. What about Jejia? Song Yuan glanced at the contract in my hand, then at me. I responded coldly, "Isn't she supposed to be boarding at school? I remember she requested it herself on the day of the promotion banquet, and all our relatives and friends can attest to that." Rarely, Song Jejia and I found ourselves on the same side. Yes, it was my request. I don't need her to accompany me. If you insist on having her follow me, I'd rather not attend school at all. The other 3 exchanged glances. I understand Song Jejia. How could she comfortably date Feng Shui if I were accompanying her? After spending a few days together at the villa last time, the two of them must have officially started a romantic relationship. Of course, she wouldn't want me around. Recently, I've been busy with soil treatment and improvement for the plantation, preparing for planting. My senior and I are either at the Agricultural Institute or in the fields, leaving us no time to deal with Song family matters, since I had a lawyer file for divorce. I moved out of the Song residence and started living in a small house near the farm. While I was planning to turn this small house into a dreamy garden filled with flowers and vegetables, I received a call from Song Jieja's high school homeroom teacher. The teacher told me that not only had Song Jieja been skipping classes and staying out all night, but her academic performance was also worrying. She had been sleeping in class every day since the start of the school year. It was only during a recent dormitory check that they discovered she had been hiding under her blanket playing with her phone. The teacher's tone was serious, urging me to visit the school as soon as possible. Since I was still legally Song Jieja's mother, I agreed. I called Song Yuan to ask him to go to the school, but he said he was on a business trip and begged me to go instead. Another business trip? In my previous life? I was accompanying her at this time and had no idea whether he was at home or not. It seems strange now. I went to the school. The homeroom teacher also called Song Jieja to the office. Seeing me sitting next to her teacher, Song Jieja's face immediately darkened. "What are you doing at our school?" The teacher said, "Jieja, I called your mother here to discuss your recent performance at school." Song Jieja knew what this was about and shut her mouth. The teacher continued. "As parents and educators, we must work together. We can't just leave everything to the school. You also need to pay attention to your child's psychological and emotional issues. It's natural for teenagers to start exploring relationships, but staying out all night is not appropriate for your age." The teacher implied deeply. Song Jieja blushed as if blood would drip from her face. I showed a look of profound distress. "Jieja, how could you change like this? I wanted to accompany you initially, but you adamantly refused, claiming you could take care of yourself. Look at yourself now." "Teacher, don't worry. I will rent a house near the school immediately and will strictly supervise her. From now on, I will drop her off at school in the morning and pick her up in the evening, ensuring she doesn't revert to her old ways," I assured the teacher, patting my chest. The homeroom teacher nodded in satisfaction. "I believe you. If you could raise a middle school top scorer, it shows you definitely focus on your child's education." But this made Song Jieja frantic. At this moment, she should be deeply lost in the romantic illusions Feng Zhua has woven for her, unable to extricate herself. How could she accept me ruining that for them? She glared at me fiercely. "I don't need you to interfere. You're not my mom. Why do you care so much?" The homeroom teacher's pupils shook, her face a picture of shock. She told the teacher, "I'll correct my own mistakes. Please don't call this woman to the school in the future. She's not my mom. She was the other woman in my parents' marriage, and she's already divorced from my dad." It seemed like too much information at once, and the teacher was somewhat stunned. I apologetically looked at the teacher, copied the phone numbers of Song Jieja's real mom and dad on a blank piece of paper, and handed it to her. "Teacher, these are her biological parents' numbers. Please take care of this from now on." After saying this, I walked out of the office, wiping the tears from the corner of my eyes. As soon as I left the office, a smile curled on my lips. I believe that before my divorce, I should no longer receive these annoying calls. I can finally focus on farming. Unknowingly, another 3 months passed. As expected, my first divorce lawsuit was rejected, but by this time, I had discovered something unusual about Song Yuan. Once, when I went back to the Song family house to collect some items, I found medication for preventing miscarriage in a drawer in Song Yuan's study. Since it had been many years since my miscarriage, it certainly wasn't mine. I began to follow the clues. Eventually, in Song Yuan's car dashcam, I found the evidence. The medication belonged to Xia Yan, and the child she was carrying was Song Yuan's. In the dashcam footage, she mentioned having a blood test abroad, revealing it was a boy. I knew she had divorced a couple of years ago, reportedly. She was tricked into losing over 2 million in gambling in Macau, and her husband paid off her debts but also divorced her. She left the marriage without any assets, and her son stayed with the father. Unexpectedly, she had returned to Song Yuan. My mother-in-law and sister-in-law seemed to also be aware of this news. They used to call every other day, accusing me of not being a decent wife, not staying home, and fooling around with men. Now, those calls had completely stopped. But that was just fine. I enjoyed the peace. I thought seeing Song Yuan and Xia Yan together would upset me, drive me mad. Surprisingly, I felt unusually calm, as if it was all inevitable. Perhaps the cumulative disappointment had reached its peak at the moment of uncovering the truth. I felt a sense of relief. These pieces of evidence somewhat expedited my divorce process. My divorce lawyer was a sharp, clear-headed woman. Once she obtained the evidence, she methodically prepared her case. And by the time of the court hearing, she had an 8-page defense ready. She presented the facts, argued logically, and proved that my marriage to Song Yuan had irretrievably broken down, with no possibility of mediation. This time, the court granted our divorce. Thereafter, I focused on my 500 acres of farmland and my small farmhouse. We grow organic products, supply specific vendors, and also collaborate with some leading agricultural product live streamers for online sales. We established our own agricultural technology company and collaborated with agricultural universities to provide internships for graduating students. We also welcome visits from elementary students to educate them on the importance of agriculture. Agriculture and farmers should never be undervalued. And as for me and my senior, time had fostered our love, and we eventually came together. Strangely, after many years of unsuccessful attempts at conception, within a year of our marriage, I gave birth to a beautiful daughter. Once, during a meal with friends, they brought up Song Yuan. They said that not long after our divorce, he remarried Xia Yan. Xia Yan had a son, and the entire family doted on her like a young mistress. My mother-in-law cooked and did laundry for her. My sister-in-law takes care of her child. Friends say that Song Yuan now looks just like an old ox, no longer displaying his former spirited demeanor. As for Song Jiejia, she has become a marginalized figure. No one cares about her anymore, let alone afford costly activities like hobby classes or private tutoring. Even when she wants to join competitions and asks her mother for money, she gets a lecture. Her mother says that all the family's assets will eventually belong to her younger brother, and the money she earns in the future should be saved to buy him a house and get him a wife. Attending university seems pointless. It's better to start working early and earn money. I can't imagine these words coming from a woman who has received a modern education, but this is none of my business. It's her child after all, and she has the right to manage as she pleases. Years later, when I saw Song Jiejia again, she was not freely exploring university life but working as a waitress in a restaurant. I was dining there with a group of new agricultural interns from my company. Song Jiejia was the one serving us. When she saw me, she paused and instinctively called out, "Mom." I did not respond and simply sipped the tea in front of me. Everyone's gaze turned to her, causing her to fidget nervously, clutching her apron emblazoned with the restaurant's logo. One of the male interns suddenly shouted, "Song Jiejia, is that you? Why are you working as a waitress?" Song Jiejia glanced at the young man, her face flushing red, and then she hurried out of the room. The curious stares then shifted to the young man. He coughed and began to narrate, "She is Song Jiejia, the top scorer of our city's middle school exams." The teachers of 2 experimental classes almost fought over her because of her initially excellent academic performance, but then, she got involved in an early romance. He sighed softly. Next, rumors spread that she was pregnant. Her mother came to our school, cursing and demanding the father come forward and compensate their family. The whole school knew about it, and she dropped out. The crowd murmured sympathetically. The young man sighed again and continued, "It's truly a pity. I hadn't seen her for many years, and to think that she ended up as a waitress here." He chuckled self-deprecatingly. "I actually had a crush on her back then." The people around him laughed teasingly. The matter seemed to be put to rest with that. After the meal, the group of students decided to go for a walk by the river to enjoy the night view. I watched them, appreciating the joys of youth, then turned to walk to the parking lot. Unexpectedly, I saw Song Jiejia, her eyes red with tears. I examined her closely. At just over 20, her face bore the marks of hardship. Her once delicate and fair face now had many blemishes. Her hands were nervously intertwined. She looked up, tears filling her eyes. "Mom." I turned to leave, but she grabbed my arm, shouting, "Why did you ruin me just because I'm not your biological daughter?" I gave a bitter smile. "If that's what you need to think to feel better, then so be it." Her eyes grew redder, her expression more ferocious. "Why didn't you insist on accompanying me to school? Why did you cancel all my tutoring? You knew I was dating Fengzhou. Why didn't you stop me?" By the end, she was gritting her teeth. I reminded her, "You were the one who repeatedly said I wasn't your mother and refused to let me intervene. Don't you remember? You always reminded me that you weren't my biological daughter. It was your choice." I tried to help you countless times, but you chose to fall. Hearing this, her lips trembled uncontrollably, and tears streamed down her face. She collapsed to the ground, sobbing, but it shouldn't have been like this. I should be at Peking University, and you should be the one who's dead. I looked down at her coldly. As it turns out, not only had I been reborn, but so had Song Jiejia. She suddenly burst out laughing. You see, you can't distinguish good from bad, kid, after 3 tough years in high school. How could the school food compare to your mother's cooking, or the dormitory to the comfort of your own home? She continued, laughing. The truth is, I got into Peking University, you were hit by a car. And we received a huge compensation payment. As I walked away, numerous onlookers paused to stare at us, having been given a second chance only to squander it so completely. I was at a loss for words, unwilling to engage with her further, and reluctant to become the center of public gossip. I strode directly toward my car. Behind me, desperate cries pierced the air. Mom, 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 I regret it. If only I could do it all over again, I would definitely listen to you. I closed the car door, shutting out the external noise. Watching the girl sobbing uncontrollably on the ground, my mind drifted back to a summer more than a decade ago, that small, dirty little girl hiding behind her grandmother, timidly asking, "Who are you?" "I'm your mom." She tilted her head, pondered for a moment, then swiftly threw herself into my arms, joyfully shouting, "Mommy." What changed everything after that